Hello, welcome to this other session of REU ECN Are You Ready workshops. This time we have Alexandra and Davis, who are science influencers from last year, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about how to apply for research and internship opportunities. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Abril, for the introduction. So, I'm recovering from a cold, so I apologize for my rough voice. But yes, as Abril mentioned, my name is Alexandra Ash, and I was a part of the Science Influencer cohort in 2024. And I'm very happy to be here and share my internship experiences with you all online and walk you through the process of finding, applying to, and landing those internship positions. So I'm going to just share my screen real quick. I have my presentation. Right. Can everybody see that properly? Okay, let me just. Okay, so now I'm full screen, so I can't see the Microsoft Teams anymore. So if you guys if something goes wrong, you're gonna have to open your mic. But yeah, so this is applying for internships and research opportunities. REEU Ready June Workshop 2025. So welcome, guys. And so again, I'm going to walk you through that process of finding, applying to, and landing internship positions. And because all of you guys are some very bright individuals, and any institution would be super lucky to have you guys interning. So let's go. So this is our agenda for the day. So first I'm going to go over the differences between an REU and an REEU because there's still some confusion on what that is. Eligibility for an REU, benefits of an internship, finding the internship opportunities, the application process. Since you need a resume, a personal statement, and letters of rec, I'm going to walk you through some tips for that. Some general tips and tricks, what to expect during the internship, and then I guess no Q&A in this particular session, but we'll move on. So I'm just going to talk about my internship experiences real quick with you guys. And so before we get started, I'm just going to, again, have a bit of a chat about my internship experience. So the Science Influencer program was a year-long program where I learned science communication in a remote agricultural communications course. Well, it was remote for me because I live down in Laredo, Texas, and the course was in College Station. And we worked on a series of projects like social media posts, podcast promos, and blog posts to learn how to communicate complex research findings and turn those into accessible scientific information for the public. And it was super informative because I hadn't thought about how the more I learn, the more classes I take, and the greater my understanding the greater my understanding of an area of research becomes, the broader the knowledge gap between myself and the general public. So it was amazing to learn to bring scientific progress where it belongs, and that is to the very people that it affects. So it's great to be able to learn to bridge that gap and know that the more I learn, I can also make sure that the general public is up to date with all the research that is happening in science because it's a daily thing. There's new discoveries every day, and it's great to be able to learn how to communicate that to everybody. And so that is the essence of the Science Influencer program, but it also has that internship component. So in the Science Influencer program, you have to find an internship for that summer. And the cool thing is that the Science Influencers program will cover the cost of that internship. So they'll include travel, housing, living expenses, everything. So if you come across the internship of your dreams, right? and it's abroad, or the experience isn't paid, or you're overall dissuaded from taking that internship, then the science influencers will take care of that financial burden so that you don't have to worry about the costs. And the internship I chose for science influencers was the IPMB REEU at Texas A&M. And I actually learned about this opportunity by asking one of the professors that I'm close to if he knew of any internships that were open or that he could recommend. And he described it to me, and he said that it was focused on plant microbiology. And I was like, oh my God, like that's perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. And so I remember I just took out my laptop and I just immediately started applying because it was perfect. Like it's exactly what I had wanted. And so, yeah, again, please remember that academic networking and forming a connection with your professors is a great way to get involved and learn about new opportunities that you would have been otherwise completely blind to, right? So remember, professors were students once too. So if you're struggling with grad school applications, formatting your resume, writing a cover letter, things of that nature, whatever it may be, like just ask them to look it over for you. It can't hurt you, honestly. And since they're in your department or in at least a similar field of study, then their feedback will be a lot more personalized compared to your university's career services, which is again a great source too. But if you want something a little more specific, a little more uh, field of study focused, then asking a professor for help on your resume or any other material for applications that can help you a lot. And so, what is the difference between an REU and an REEU? So, I see this question a lot, but the bottom line is REEUs have that little extra E for extension. And now REEUs are funded by USDA. And they were created to focus on the more agricultural and food side of research. So the extension usually involves like visiting farms, rice fields, and treatment plants so that you can see the direct correlation of your research and get a glimpse into the agricultural workforce as well. And it's again to bridge that sort of disconnect between scientific research and farmers, because although you're familiar with the scientific side of a problem, you'll learn how farmers tackle these issues on a daily basis, and you get to actually visit it and see it for yourself. It becomes a real tangible thing. And that's what sets the REEU apart from the REU. And well, all these research internships, regardless of whether they're REU or REEUs, they all follow the same typical kind of formula. So that is, they run 8 to 10 weeks, and they start in late May or early June. And they're very selective. I've seen REUs with as low as 6 students, and I've seen some larger ones with around 20 students. So it really depends on the institution, but they are generally, and they're well known to be pretty competitive. And all of these are paid through a stipend, so it's a set amount of money. So it's about 3,000 to 6,000. I've seen 3,000 is the lowest. The highest I think I've seen 7,000, but those are super rare. And it's split and awarded to you at the beginning of each month because it's 10 weeks. So you'll get it at a stipend split in half and awarded at the beginning of each month. And that will cover your housing, your meals, and it will reimburse any money that you spent to get to the internship site. So it'll negate those travel costs as well. And some internships even cover housing. So you'll have your stipend and then housing will be covered on top of that. So it won't be deducted from your stipend. But those are the really good ones. Those are the ones that I try to look for, where you get the stipend and then housing is covered on top of that. Or housing is provided in like the dormitories. I think those are the best ones. And so I would look out for those. And for eligibility for REUs and REEUs, this is specifically, you have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident. I'm pretty sure this is for every single REU. I think this might be a grant requirement, but I have seen very few that have like that have an exception for international students, or they'll just have like completely different programs, also research programs, but specifically for international students since they can't usually participate in REUs. And many institutions, again, like they offer that kind of workaround or different programs, but it largely varies per institution. And you also need to be currently enrolled in an institution, so any kind of four-year university and community colleges as well. And community colleges are especially encouraged to apply to REUs and REEUs because they just don't have a lot of the research facilities that a four-year university would have. So that's why REUs extend to community colleges as well. And graduating seniors, generally students that graduate the semester right before the REU starts, like right before the summer of that REU, they aren't eligible to participate. There's and I mean very few REUs that will allow this, but they'll have a disclaimer. They'll be like, not disclaimer, they'll say like, oh, graduating seniors are eligible for this position. I think I've seen like, because I'm a graduating senior and I still try to look for some REUs and I found maybe like two, but they weren't even in my field of study. They were computer science. So I couldn't even apply to those. Like they're very few and far between. If you're a graduating senior, you will likely not find one that you're eligible for, but it doesn't hurt to look. But that's why I put in here the post-baccalaureate programs. And those are perfect because once you're graduated, you're no longer an undergraduate, but you're not a graduate student yet. You're in that kind of in between. The post-baccalaureate programs are perfect, especially if you're not sure if you want to go to graduate school yet and you want to get some extra experience. You can do some research using those programs and you can get a feel for you can get more experience and you can see if graduate school is something that you want to pursue. Okay, so yeah, this is the question, right? Why should I do a research internship at all, right? So I mean, my answer to this is why not? Why wouldn't you do a research internship? I mean, it's a wonderful experience. It's a paid opportunity to check out a university, and who knows, if you really enjoy the atmosphere and you really enjoy the research that you do, it can be a future contender for a graduate school. And it's also an awesome way to check out new cities that you've never been to before. And so like, for example, you want to know if Boston is the right place for you, right? So you can just check out like the REU possibilities in Boston. So the possibilities are endless because there's REUs all over the US. So don't be scared to apply to ones that are pretty far from where you live. So just take the plunge and go for it. It's perfectly okay. And also, internships are the perfect time to make some connections. So you'll be meeting a ton of new people from faculty to students, and you want to make sure you get out of your shell a little bit and you have some meaningful conversations with your PI and other interns. So I know it's scary and I know it's going to be tempting to kind of want to fade into the background, right? Because it's all new and it's all happening so fast and you're in a new place and there's all new people, and I get it, that can be pretty overwhelming. And but you just want to remember that just in case you want to apply for either graduate school or a job, or yeah, graduate school or a job or a job at that university, then you want to keep your options open and you want to talk to people. You don't want to just fade into obscurity and not have made that meaningful connection, because that's, at least to me, the most valuable part of an internship. It's getting to really know the culture of a university, getting to know the faculty, getting to know their values, the projects that they're doing, and just really feeling like asking that question, like, do I belong here? Do I see myself here? Do I have a future in this institution for graduate school? And if the answer is yes, well, then that's great. And if the answer is no, well, that's perfectly okay too. You can do an internship at another institution next time, or you could visit another place and then just keep repeating the process until the answer is a yes. It's perfectly okay. And I think a negative experience at an REU is just as valuable as a positive experience at an REU, because I mean, you'll know if a field of study just isn't for you, and then you can just try something else. That's part of like the great part about being an undergrad. You can just try new things, try different topics, try different fields that you thought that you would never try before, and you just gotta try it out, see what works. That's Again, that's part of the fun. That's part of what being in school is about. It's about exploring and learning, seeing what is right for you. And yeah, so build confidence, make new friends, and have fun. Oh, yeah, these photos are, it's me and my lab mate, and we have like our cell culture. We have some fungi on this plate here, some plants that we were growing. And since it was in our REEU, the extension part is that we went to go visit a farm. It was Bayer, I think it was a Bayer farm. And yeah, so we got to see like how everything is grown, how everything is managed, and it was really interesting. I've never visited a farm before, so first time for everything. All right, so um, finding internship opportunities. How do you go about finding an internship? So if you aren't as lucky as me, because okay, this is how I found my internship. I basically just asked my professor if he knew of any internship opportunities around. And he said, "Oh, yeah, this is the PLPM, the plant pathology and microbiology internship." And I was like, "Yeah, that's perfect. Like that aligns with everything." So in case you're not as lucky as me, and then your professor just gives you this bright, shiny, perfect REU, then these are the great sites for you to find internship opportunities. I'm gonna take a sip of water. Oh, so the NSF site is a good one. This one is a sort of like what do I say? This is like a database, right? So the NSF site is like a database that lists every single host institution, and then you filter by like field of study, location, you name it. And that will have like every single REU that is funded by NSF. And the NSF ETAP website, it's the second link here. The NSF ETAP is sort of like a common app if you remember high school applications. It's basically just all the RUs are listed. It has a description, the host institutions, everything. And you create an application like within the NSF ETAP portal, and then you upload all the materials. So the letters of recommendation, resume, transcript, everything, you upload it onto the NSF ETAP, and then you submit it directly on that website. So this is different from the NSF site because the NSF site will just direct you to each university's like REU website, and then you would upload it through their individual portal. So it kind of streamlines the process a little bit. So if you're applying to a lot of REUs, you don't want to be, well, in general, you don't want to be just having all these websites open of all these different institutions and then logging in like and sending separate applications. You want one website where all your applications are sort of condensed and you can keep track of them better. At least that's what I would do for NSF ETAP. It's down for maintenance a lot, though, I will say. I remember when I was applying for internships, I had a lot of trouble because NSF ETAP would just randomly undergo maintenance. And I was like, what? I can't even like access it like half the time. I hope that's fixed now, but I did find it pretty annoying. And Pathways to Science, I'd say that's the best one there. Or Pathways to Science is the most comprehensive one on this list because it's a massive database and it has a ton of filters so you can find the perfect internship for you. So this includes every kind of internship opportunity. So even ones that aren't just NSF funded, you can find it there. And of course, don't hesitate to ask your professors or graduate students about internships. You never know. You really will never know because um, graduate students, I mean, they've been through the whole applying to internship process before, and they They'll probably have like their favorite set of internships or ones that they apply to, or the most common ones that maybe you wouldn't think of when you're like searching through a database. So yeah, I would ask graduate students, hey, what internships do you recommend? Or what professor did you work with in this internship? Or just for general advice, like just ask professors, ask graduate students. I mean, they're the ones that know best. They're the ones who lived through it. So they're a great and valuable resource too. All right, so for the general application process, so this is what you'll need. You'll need a resume or a CV, a personal statement, and some letters of recommendation. I would say 1 to 2 and maybe 3, because I'm trying to think. I do not think I've seen an REU that doesn't require a letter of rec. Maybe if, no, I've never seen it. They'll all require a letter of recommendation. And I saw one that required 3 letters of recommendation, and I was like, oh, that's a little crazy. Usually I see 2. I rarely see 1. 2 is the most common. And again, you're going to want to tailor each of these materials, the resume, the personal statement, and letters of recommendation to each REU site. And I know that's going to take forever. And I know it's a little bit annoying and you don't want to have to be doing that, but it honestly makes a world of a difference. It makes you stand out when you personalize it completely for each REU opportunity, because it shows that you're taking the time and the energy to and care to really make your application personalized to them. It shows, oh, the reviewers and the committee are gonna look at it and they're gonna be like, oh, like this student like really wants to be a part of our REU specifically, or oh, they really liked the way our institution does this, or they like our institution's core values, or they really like the area. Let's say Michigan, they really like the area, they really like the geography and the history. Like, just show that you just show that you did a bit of research about the area that REU's in, and show that passion, and I promise that it will make you shine through for your applications. I promise you. Okay, so for your resume and CV, so these programs, they'll ask for either a resume or a CV, and they will usually give you the option to upload either one, but there's usually some confusion on what the differences are. So a resume, okay, these are just the key differences though. The key differences is a resume, it's usually 1 page, it has really short statements, and it's focused on work experience. So it has bullet points, it focuses on work experience, because when you're trying to get a job and you hand in a resume, right, it's going to be very focused on something that's very practical, like practical work experience, like retail, or if you worked in a hospital, whatever it may be. And on the opposite end is a CV. So a CV is a longer document, and it lists all your achievements that are relevant to your academics. So presentations, publications, research positions, awards, things of that nature. And for help writing your resume or CV, I would highly suggest using your university's like career services and a writing center. And it's completely free. And you can get some really high quality feedback that way. And me personally, I prefer to ask my professors to look at my resume. And since they're in your department and they can just give you a lot better and more personalized feedback, and they can tell you what committees and what reviewers actually look for in a resume within a like a natural sciences department, which is the department I'm in, for example. And I'm gonna take another sip of water. Okay. And yes, also quick tip, major tip, print out your resume. It print out your resume. It is not the same thing as seeing it online. So trust me, so many like grammar, spelling, or other formatting issues, like they'll just jump out at you whenever you print it out. And you can also see it from the perspective of a reviewer or a company looking over your resume, because you have it printed out in front of you and you're really looking at it, you're reading it, and it's just a completely different experience from scrolling and seeing it online, because I think your eyes get tired and you get so used to seeing it one way that when you have it printed in front of you, it just looks completely different, and you're like, who wrote this? Surely it wasn't me, because I swear it looked better online. And then that's when you can start the revising process and really take a good look at it. And yeah, so you can, once you have it printed out, you can like view it from the reviewer's perspective, and you can look at it and you can take out your red pen and review it, and you could be like, would I hire me? Would I hire myself if I saw this resume in front of me? Or would I choose a student for this RU program? That sort of thing. It helps change your perspective. Okay, and make sure to include these things on your resume just in case you guys don't really know what to put. And so you want to have that relevant coursework. So you can tailor that for the REU that you're applying to. It doesn't have to be the same each time. So if you're applying to a genomics REU or a genetics REU, so be sure to list genetics, or even in our programming class under relevant coursework, to show that you have some knowledge in that subject. And for research and work experience, I would suggest to focus on more academic job positions. Like if you're a TA, or if you have a campus job, or if you're a research assistant, you can do that too. And for presentations, you can put like poster presentations or conferences that you've spoken at. If you're a freshman, or if you're just starting out and you don't have any sort of presentations or conferences that you've been at, then that's perfectly okay. That's something that you can add as you go along. And it's also important to note that REUs, they're more for you don't need prior research experience to do an REU. They don't mind that you haven't done research before. They just want you to have a willingness to learn. They want to see that you're hardworking. And yeah, so you don't be discouraged if you don't have prior research experience and think that you can't apply to an REU, which is completely not the case. It's actually supposed to be the stepping stone into building that sort of research experience. So don't be discouraged by lack of experience, because the REU can be your first experience, and then you can just build up on top of that. And so for extracurriculars, if you have any leadership positions, like if you started a club, if you're the president of a sorority, an active member in like an environmental organization, you name it, anything like that, you can add that here on your resume, because this section is pretty important too, the extracurricular, because it tells the committee who you are, because the committee doesn't really know who you are. They have your name, they see the coursework, work experience, but you see a little bit of personality shine through with extracurriculars. You start to see, okay, this is who this person is academically, but who are they socially? Who are they outside of their academics? What does that show about their character? And so if they see something like that, president of a sorority, or they're an environmentalist, it shows, oh, they have passion, they have drive, they know how to lead a club, they have very specific interests that aren't necessarily academic, but they bring people together and it shows community. There are great things that you can add on your resume. And so yeah, it tackles who you are, and it shows that while you're still thriving academically, you can handle responsibilities too. So it shows that you are a very well-rounded individual. And for skills, you want to jot down any languages you speak. And if you know any software like RStudio or MATLAB or Adobe, any of the Adobe suite, or Photoshop too, that counts. Those are all perfect to write down. And I would say programming languages too, like Python, C++, R, Ruby. I don't know any other programming languages. I know like four. But just programming languages are great to put as skills, because if you know how to code, if you know programming languages, that's going to set you apart, especially if you're a biology major. At least in my institution in Laredo, we aren't required to take a coding class or any basic programming classes. And I honestly wish we did, because I see that it's used so much, and I feel like it would progress a lot of students' research if we all just knew a little bit of programming, so that we could all be pretty proficient in RStudio, or just write a basic Python script, right? Like, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. But yeah, it would actually would make us much more competitive applicants if we knew how to code. So yeah, so if you know how to code, or if you pick up a programming language, get a certificate, you can put that under skills, and that's already gonna boost you way up. And this is the heart of the internship application. It's the personal statement, and it's one that like gets a lot of, it takes people a lot to write this thing. And I know it took me a while to write it, not because it was long. It's 500 to 750 words. It's not a long thing to write, but it's one of those things where there's no set um, format for it. It's very free verse, and you have to get really creative with it. And it's telling a story. It's storytelling. So it tells the reader why you chose this specific internship, what's current skills you will bring to the position, and but it also does so in a narrative format. It has a flow, it has a beginning, middle, and an end, and you can get a little creative with it. You can get a little artistic with it, and so that'll also make you stand out if you have like a good hook, if you tell a good story. It doesn't have to be a harrowing one. It doesn't have to be sad, super sad, or it doesn't have to be a particularly difficult or grandiose challenge that you overcame. It just has to be something yours. It has to be authentic, and it has to be related to your research interests, and it just has to be super honest and coming from the heart. And yeah, so it's a great place to shine, share your research interests, what you want to study, and what you hope to gain from that specific institution. And that's also the one of the most important parts, because again, this is a personal statement, but you're also applying to this REU, so you want to put enough emphasis on the university or the program that you're applying to. You want to talk about them and how that relates to you, but you do want to focus on the REU as well, right? So you don't want to just talk about yourself and then leave one sentence at the end talking about the program. You want to talk enough about the program to show that you're passionate about it, and that you're interested in either A, the faculty, the projects, the personal development part of the internship, the extension part, just absolutely anything. Go and read the REU website and see all of the things that they're offering, and read up on it, and then just see what sticks out, see what you really like, and then write about that. Like, oh, I'm excited to do this, or the personal development will like help me develop my professional career. It'll help me gain confidence as a researcher. It'll help me. The skills I gain from this internship will help me with my personal projects, stuff like that. Like, how does that specific REU, again, specifics will win you everything here. How does that specific REU help you, right? So yeah, it has a narrative flow. So don't try not to be so robotic with it, or just regurgitate the resume. I know that's what I did when I first started drafting my personal statement. I kind of just reworded my resume, because I'm like, well, I mean, I have to state my research interests. I have to say like what I want to learn, and talk about my past, and talk about like how I want this to impact my career in the future. And I'm like, this sounds like a resume, right? I'm like, I think I can just like repeat it, and then I can get away with that. But I showed that to my professor, and my professor was like, no, no, you're gonna have to rewrite this. Like, and she told me, she's like, it's called a personal statement for a reason. It's supposed to be personal. It's supposed to tell a story. It's supposed to evoke emotion, and it's supposed to really get the person thinking like, oh, okay, like this this individual is really passionate about this REU. They're supposed to feel it, you know? So, and again, I'm gonna have to stress this. Be authentic, and also this means not to use any sort of generative AI or ChatGPT or DeepSeek or any of those AI models to write this personal statement, because it's going to be so obvious. It's going to be so obvious if you do, because I know the reason why a lot of people use AI is because they aren't really confident in their writing, or they feel like they have a lot of grammatical errors, and so they just want to throw it to ChatGPT, have them reword it, and then they think that whatever it spits out is going to be better than what you put in. And the answer is it's not going to be better. All it is, it's going to be more generic. It's going to sound like any other paper out there. It's going to strip it completely of any voice that you had beforehand. And so my advice is your writing's great. Your writing is great. Just focus, refine it, go to writing centers, and get other people to look at it, and then you can fine tune it that way. I think just feeding it to ChatGPT is the worst thing you can do for yourself. It's just going to give you like a carbon cutout, like carbon copy, not carbon cutout, just like a, just going to give you like a pantomime or a copy of something. It's not going to be unique. It's not going to give you something good. So, yeah, just trust your own writing abilities, get some help if you need, but make sure to write it yourself. That's the most important part. So yeah, you want to highlight your accomplishments. And so a lot of people like they write this and they talk about an obstacle they overcame. Oh, they talk about an obstacle that they overcame. And yeah, that's a perfect way to set up that narrative. But you want to really focus on the overcoming part and not the obstacle part. So, like, describe barriers that you've had. So, if you had like poor grades back in your freshman year, and then don't focus on the fact that you had poor grades. Focus, just maybe say, I had a rough start in my freshman year. My academics weren't the best, but I picked up some good study habits. I started going to my professor's office hours. I started connecting with classmates to create study groups, and that caused my GPA to boost in the recent semester. So notice how I'm focusing more on what I did to fix this, what I did to overcome the obstacle, than the obstacle itself. Because then it might just come across as you just dumping all your issues into a personal statement, and that's not what you want. You want it to be focused on good things, on you overcoming and prospering despite your setbacks. And again, I'm going to stress, if you're a part of a minority group, if you have any sort of disability, or if you're a first gen college student, if you're underrepresented in any way, this is going to be a major talking point, because this is like a major obstacle. If you have a disability, that's something that affects you in every aspect of your life, not even academic. So that's a great way to talk about how you as a student, you're not impacted or you're not held back by your disability. Or of course it causes you issue, but how did you overcome this? What networks did you build to overcome this? Did you talk to your professors? Did you have to talk to like advisors to accommodate you? Like, what was that process like? What did that look like? And for first generation students too. I was a first generation student myself, and honestly, I felt really lost a lot of the time. But thankfully, there's plenty of like first gen programs that are made in place specifically for those who are their first in their family to go to college, and they just don't know what's available, they don't know what's up. And so they have mentoring, and they have peer mentoring and like faculty mentoring. And so they just let you know everything that's going on. They are there to assist you with absolutely anything and guide you through the college journey, and I'm super grateful for things like that. So yeah, these are all very huge setbacks, things that prevent you from really being the best, the best researcher, the best in your field, right? So you can talk about how you overcame all of those things, and that can be a great talking point. And it says a lot about your personality, that despite being underrepresented, despite being first gen, despite being a minority, despite having a disability, you overcame whatever obstacles you needed to, and you're up here. You're applying to internships, applying to REUs all over the country, and you just applying, it shows a lot about your dedication, because you fought twice as hard to get here, you know? So yeah. So tips from letters of recommendation. So for letters of recommendation, you want a letter from a faculty member that is familiar with your character and with your research. So you don't want letters from a faculty member that doesn't really know you, or if you just kind of took their class but you didn't really participate, or you sat in the back or something like that, or if you took their class and then you didn't get a good grade on it, or even worse, like a professor you don't even know, or that doesn't even know you, and maybe they'll still write the letter of recommendation to you for you to be nice, but you won't get a strong letter of recommendation. And the strong letter of recommendation, that's what these applicants, those like reviewers look for. They look for somebody who has a strong letter of recommendation, and it's just a letter that that shows that the person who wrote the letter is fully familiar with your capabilities as a researcher and who you are as a student. Someone who's familiar with your character and with your research, right? So those strong letters of recommendation will make you stand out, like compared to the cookie cutter. See, that was the phrase I was looking for, cookie cutter. It'll make you stand out against the sort of cookie cutter letters of recommendation that professors write like very quickly and on a whim. So if it's a professor you've known since freshman year and you've gone to office hours like once a week your entire 4 years of college, and you've done research under them, you've done projects, volunteer work, a lot of things under this professor, then that is going to be a strong letter of recommendation, and it's going to be way better than anything else, right? And also remember the courtesy for recommenders. You want to give them at least like 2 weeks before the REU's like deadline for you to, yeah, you want to give recommenders like 2 weeks notice for that deadline, because you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy and you show up to your professor and you're like, hey, I found this internship. The deadline's in 2 days. Can you write me a letter of recommendation, please? Like you don't want to be doing that. Like that's already gonna make you look bad. Number one, it's gonna make you look like you're unprepared, because you are. It's gonna make you look like you're unprepared, and then the professor's gonna write a rush letter. It's because the professor had what, 2 days of notice, and they see that. I'm sorry. The professor had a 2 days notice, and like they're not going to write a good letter for you. It's not feasible to write a well constructed letter in like um it's not feasible to write a well constructed letter in 2 days. It's not going to work. So be courteous, give recommenders at least 2 weeks, and then send reminders. That's a big thing. Professors are super busy. They're super busy. They've got a lot of things on their plate. They have research, they're teaching classes, they have conferences, they have so much going on. They have like 4 jobs at once. So make sure to send them a reminder about a week or a couple of days before the deadline if they haven't submitted it yet. they're probably not ignoring you. They don't think anything malicious of it. Just send them a reminder. Like, we're human. Like, everybody needs a reminder. I'm not saying like send a reminder like daily until like every single day until like the deadline. No, don't. Please do not do that either. Do not be annoying. Just be courteous and just give them a little heads up a week before and then a couple days. That's it. You don't need to nag the professors either, because then they'll probably think you're a little, they might think you're a little impatient, and you don't want that. So, tips and tricks and some things to remember. Start early. And that is the most important one. I cannot stress this enough. Start early. Applications are due in January and February. I've seen a few extend to March, but that's only because their deadline, the program deadlines, got extended, and that's why they go into March. But it's usually January and February when the applications are due. So start early. I'm talking months in advance. It's in January. Start in October. Start planning that, because these are highly selective programs, and they've got a lot of materials, as we've learned, a lot of materials going into them. They've got multiple letters of recommendation per REU program, so start early. Start early, and I know that since you're applying to a lot of REU programs, it can be pretty difficult to stay organized. So this is what I do. I make an Excel sheet. And I'll put the program name, the site, the location, research topic, the deadline, and how many letters of recommendations they need. Because yeah, so that'll be my spreadsheet. And yeah, so I will make that to stay organized, because I think I would just forget about certain programs if I don't make a spreadsheet. Like, I remember who was this? I think it was last year. I had like 25 on my spreadsheet to like keep track of all of them. And like, I know I would have gone insane if I didn't have it, because it gets really crazy, it gets really disorganized, and then you want to do this before the end of the semester, or like way before, because it gets busy at the end of the semester. You have finals, you have finals, midterms, final projects, final everything, honestly. And the last thing you want to do is worry about a last minute letter of recommendation and like emailing all the professors at once to right before the deadline. It's a mess. So just be courteous with your professors and be courteous to yourself, and make a spreadsheet. Stay organized with the dates. Don't miss anything. And if you take it little by little, and it's really not that bad. It's only awful if you just make it awful for yourself. So contact your recommenders early, stay organized, just start early. That's my main piece of advice for every single one of you. Okay, so I think my throat gets aggravated whenever I talk. So I apologize for that. So we're just going to move forward. So, what to expect during your internship? So, this is the wow. This is the standard like week to week internship um internship timeline. There we go. This is a standard week to week timeline. So, in week 1, what I did, I just did some safety trainings. I got introduced to my lab. I met some graduate students, and I met my PI. And it was generally just to, wow, wow. It was generally just to stay, well, just to get familiar with everybody. So safety trainings were mandatory. So I had to complete those just to make sure that I knew I wasn't going to spill anything in the lab, or I knew where all the sharp containers were, safety shower, all that all that regular stuff that you see in the research videos, just making sure you know what you're doing in the lab and you know you're doing it safely. And so you also get introduced into your lab, where you're going to be working, who you're going to be working with, your graduate students. You get the first glimpse of your project, and you get to formally meet your PI. So that's going to be your research mentor, and they'll also help you just fully get acquainted with the institution and what projects that you're going to be working with. So, and from weeks 2 to 4, all of that is just basic learning, at least for me. 2 to 4, I was fully just learning how to use equipment, how to assist graduate students with their projects. And so this meant that I was washing glassware, autoclaving. Maybe I was learning how to streak plate, learning how to micropipette, just standard things. You may say it's sort of like grunt work, but it's just really so that you get into the flow of the lab. Because if you've never been in a lab environment before, it's going to be really daunting and you're not going to know what to do. So getting those weeks to really get acquainted with that research, getting acquainted with the lab itself and who you're working with, it it helps a lot. It helps a lot because you're going to have to develop a research project on your own. And so having that extra time to really make sure you learn things correctly, it's a big deal. And so for weeks 5 through 9, that is the meat of the internship. That is the most important part. It's you develop a research project, and you and you carry out a set of experiments. You carry out a set of experiments under supervision by your PI. And so a research project is typically an extension from a graduate student or a PhD candidate or PhD student's research project. So it's a small portion, and you'll be given a set of experiments, and you come up with a hypothesis, carry out experiments, test it, and then see if your hypothesis was accepted or rejected, and then future directions, standard experiment stuff, right? So you'll develop that research project based on the all of the experience that you've learned from the past weeks. And then for week 10, that is the most exciting part. You get to design a poster on Microsoft PowerPoint. You go on BioRender, you make your figures, you make it look nice and pretty, choose the fonts, choose the colors, and you present your findings at the research symposium. And no, this was my favorite part because I've never made like a research poster before, and it was just so cool to just really sit down and then think about my research and what I wanted to well, and what I wanted to present. And when I finally got down and like really just saw it for the first time, I was like, wow, that's beautiful. I'm so glad I made that. Thank you so much, guys.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ash, for that. I really appreciate it. That was a whole lot of great information. I took this in a totally different direction, and my slides are certainly not as pretty, but I'm pulling it up now. Here we are. Can y'all see this all right? Okay, cool. Um, So about me, just kind of as a background, my name is Davis Johnson. I'm A&M class of 2027. I'm a biomedical engineer, and I'm from Houston, Texas. And my goal is to be a research professor investigating bioprinted organs. And the Science Influencers experience was the first time I had ever been in a research lab. Uh, Biomedical engineering is cell culture. It's an integral part. Um, and so I got to learn mammalian cell culture, which is what's shown here. This is my first ever cell culture. I've done about 200 after that. And it's really, really fun, but it's the basis of almost all science that I do. And the main component of the Chi Lab, which is the lab that I worked with there, and all my future work. It's called microfluidics or organ on a chip technology. I'll just give you all the little rundown. Essentially, it's a way to model organs, and it's mini pipelines is the best way to that I like to describe it. And they're filled with different types of cells that interact, and understanding how those cells interact can elucidate a lot of different diseases. So the things that the Chi Lab worked on, for example, were pertaining to the retina. So we're building the best retina on a chip out there. And the goal was to create 8 different slots for 8 different cell types to be made. Um, because the retina has 8 different layers. And part of that analysis was understanding how glaucoma forms via different inflammation techniques. So that's all stuff that we investigate with this type of study. One new area that I got familiar with in building this presentation was agriculture, as the Science Influencers is agriculture based and funded. Microfluidics is integral to this new developing field to agriculture. It's a really, really cool way to study disease and how it can affect agriculture. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in agriculture in any way, shape, or form, but I found it really interesting to see kind of this application. Um, but yeah, in terms of um, applying for science influencers or any other REEU, I applied the first semester of my freshman year. So this was 3 months into college is whenever I applied, and I found the science influencers through an Instagram post. I went to delete Instagram, accidentally clicked into it, and saw somebody sitting, given the thumbs up with the MIT Beaver, and was like, "Hey, that sounds really cool. How'd they manage to pull that off?" And from there, I applied um, and got the position. The Science Influencers was my first ever job interview, and it came as quite a shock whenever there was a panel of interviewers, but it really taught me a lot. And I found the affiliated Ag CJ 404 Science Communications class really useful in building my communication skills, especially when dealing with risk, as that's something that's inherent in most biological labs. Um, and yeah, here's just kind of an overview of my application process. So over to the right's a picture of the Chi Lab, which is the lab that ended up accepting me. Dr. Maggie Chi's the one in the white dress shirt. She's in the middle. She's awesome as a private investigator or principal investigator. But once I was offered the science influencers position, I made a spreadsheet, like Ash was talking about, that had every single professor that I knew was working on bioprinting across the nation. It was about 45 different professors. And then I got a little more specific and narrowed it down to 30. And from there, I found 12 that I really, really wanted to focus on. And from those 12, exactly 0 accepted me. And I realized that I was doing a lot of stuff wrong. And that's the thing that I want to focus most on today is elucidating the things that you can do right in cold emailing for something like an internship, or even once you already have the science influencers position, or any other funding, just figuring out what to do with that and how to maximize such an opportunity, especially as funding is getting cut, especially in biomedical engineering. Um, but finally, I emailed Dr. Cheese Lab with a totally different style of email and received an almost immediate yes. A lot of people were hesitant to reply, and would reply with single sentence, no, sorry, whatever. And almost immediately, as I progressed in building these emails, the responses were getting better and more thought out, but still were no's. And then finally, a yes came. But yeah, so I like to call it the cold email format. This is something that I've seen success in both myself, and I've helped a lot of friends land lab positions. This is specific to research in academia in the way that I've formatted it, but I'm sure this applies elsewhere in just a little different format. So I've used this same format for emails to professors. It's got me a 5. I went 0 for 12 and now 5 for 5 with 4 different unique ways that I've applied this for research positions. I've landed a TA position that I start in the fall. I've gotten a lab tour at one of the labs that I want to do or join for my PhD. And then I've landed just meetings talking with postdocs and experts in certain fields. So the number one thing that I like to do is to find the current and previous interests of professors or interviewers, and frame your email around something that they did in their PhD or their recent work. And you can also email graduate students and postdocs. It really depends on how small the lab is. The smaller the lab, the bigger influence that graduate students have. So for example, for the Chi Lab, um, I emailed Andrea Goertzen. She's the girl on the left. She was my mentor and she was awesome. She taught me so much about chemical engineering and the microfluidics, but I emailed her and she was also an advocate for me. So that's a different route that you can take as well. But kind of the standard format that I like to go into is to start your email with dear or howdy, depending on whether or not they're an Aggie, and to introduce yourself with one sentence. And then to state the purpose of why you wrote, typically I'll put that in the subject as well. And then I like to refer to something in their past or a recent paper, and just add a detail that you wouldn't be able to, like Chat GPT or something that like really shows that you know what they're talking about. This was really hard for me, especially at the beginning, because the science influencers uh, position was the first research position I had. So I had no formal background in anything. So I was talking about stuff that I had never seen in person. So it was a lot more difficult than what it is now. But I found even just the more papers I read that were in the same field, the easier this got to be. But I think that is the biggest aspect that I see a lot of people lacking is kind of that second layer of interest. It's not just the research website or whatever that a professor has. It's understanding what the heck they're actually talking about, not just that little blurb, but something a lot deeper, seeing where that applies. And then I like to finish with a normal closing and attaching my resume and CV. And the biggest thing that I got in response, I got to meet weirdly whenever I did head to MIT with Dr. Chi, I got to meet some of the professors that I had reached out to. And I was like, hey, like I reached out and you didn't respond. And I see now that I'm here, you responded to a second email. Like, can you tell me what would have made you respond to the first email? And they go, look, I'm a very busy person. I receive 200 emails a day. And if I see an undergraduate emailing me with 3 paragraphs, that's not going to work. I don't have that type of time. So I've understood that being concise with your words is really valuable to people's times. And it just gets your point across a whole lot faster. But yeah, so here's an example of like finding a position. So this is something that I did. I'm working in Dr. Abhishek Jain's lab right now, but this is the process that I took to apply for his lab. So I found the faculty research lab page at Texas A&M. I've gone through almost every single major university. I say major, probably top 50 to 60 biomedical engineering universities in the United States. I've gone through their websites and found people that do things that interest me. So I saw bio-inspired translational microsystems. That's very similar to microfluidics. In fact, that's what we do. And so I clicked into that, found Dr. Jain's website, read all about it, and identified him as somebody that I'd want to work for. This is after the science influencers, but I framed my email in a way as though I am a science influencer currently looking for a position. So I found his LinkedIn and found that he worked as a PhD student in Boston at University of Boston. So there was instantly connection. We had worked a mile away from each other, and he had lived there for 6 years. And I was currently working at MIT whenever I reached out to him. And also he worked with Donald Ingber. If you are in the biomedical field, he's top three. He's very influential, and essentially established the field of study that I'm in. So I found that really interesting that this is a man with a lot of connections as well. And then I found his Google Scholar and found a paper from 2021. I had actually read this paper previously, just for fun, but it's 3D printed, sorry, 3D bioprinted multicellular vascular models. That's something that we still investigate to a different type or format than what was presented in this paper, but it's still one of the main components in the lab. So I read that paper and understood what was going on and applied my previous knowledge about vascular models. It was very limited at the time, but I sent an email that was very, very similar to this. It had a little more just about being at MIT, but if I were a science influencer applying to this position, this is how I would have framed it. Just howdy, Dr. Jane, a nice, easy introduction. My name is Davis Johnson, and I'm a junior undergraduate biomedical engineer here at Texas A&M. Something that a lot of professors reached out to me, like in their response for the science influencers, is it wasn't clear, or they didn't have a lot of exposure to such an opportunity where funding was essentially unconditional, in that it was on our responsibility to make sure that we were hitting all the check marks for the funding rather than on them. Typically, funding, they have to do X, Y, Z, and in the science influencers, it's on the cohort members, which I like. I really did like that. In fact, I think this still applies, but you get paid as a PI for hosting somebody. But the biggest and most influential part, and this is something that Dr. Jane himself, my boss, said, is I copy pasted this sentence. Um, I just said, I read your 3D bioprinted multivascular models paper and I'm curious about the implementation of fibroblasts and pericytes. They're just two other types of cells that weren't in this paper, but are integral to blood vessels. But he said that that was enough interest, and that kind of just the next layer of interest that he took me on as a researcher for that exact reason. Yeah, he had one position available and had three different candidates, and he said that one sentence was the difference. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have for this presentation. But the biggest thing that I've seen overall is to try to inspire people to hire you. It's not just here's my resume, here's my CV, hire me. It's here's why you want to hire me. And I know Ash was talking about that a lot. Um, but truly showing your passion for somebody's work and trying to relate to them. In my actual email to Dr. Jane, I said that, look, I see that you've worked at Boston University and I'm at MIT right now. Like, we're working with a lot of the same people. I'm really, really curious to hear and discuss your time because he was at the forefront of founding essentially the field that I'm going to go into for probably my PhD. And so, yeah, that was a great, great, just relatable moment, I think. But yeah, that's all I have for this presentation. I'm open to any questions y'all have.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say that was excellent. You both did such a great job, Davis and Alexandra. Good job.
Yes, I'd like to echo what Bob said. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you guys so much for providing all this like important insights for students. I'm sure they will find it very, very helpful whenever they're looking for what type of these opportunities. And for those who were not able to join, I will post this recording on our website and on our YouTube channel. So it'll be available for everyone to watch later. And if Alexandra and Davis, if you would like to, if you're open to sharing your email and
Okay.
like if students want to reach out and like if you can offer them or you want to offer them a little bit more guidance, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Are there
Would
any other
you,
questions? Sorry.
sorry, I was just gonna ask, how would you like me to share that?
No, I can share with them if
Okay.
you, yeah, or if you want to put it on the chat, if they can look at the chat
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, that would also work. And I don't know if there's any questions from Abner or Gabriela. Hi, thank you for joining us. I don't see any hands. Well, if that's it, I won't take up more of your time than you've already given us. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Gabriel.
you. Have a good one.
Good one.